Christian parenting.
If you're like me, you've got nutrition on your mind in 2025. And also, if you're like me, you're really busy. If that's the case, then Factor has got you covered. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to simply heat and eat in 2 minutes. So you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast and use code Factor Podcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's right. Go to factormeals.com/Factor Podcast and get 50% off using code Factor Podcast. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy to get to hang out with you today, and I'm really excited to get to share a listener favorite guest with you all. My son, Luke Swanson, is back, and we are talking about discipline as a character quality, discipline as something Luke has learned to embrace. He's a pretty chill guy by nature. We'll talk about that, but how our family has helped him develop self-discipline, what that has looked like as a Christian student athlete, now being a professional surfer. And I just think this conversation should encourage all of you. So definitely bring those kids in to listen. Send this off to your young adult kids if you have them. And I just hope this is super encouraging to all of you. Now, at the end of our conversation, Luke will tell you, but I'll just let you know right now that part of the reason we're doing this is because Luke and I have been talking about discipline a lot as he shared a brand new video for my character training course. Now, my character training course is something I open only 3 times a year, typically for about a week at a time. And on March 24th, I'll be opening the doors to the character training course for 1 week. And Luke has added a really sweet feature. He recorded a video of himself talking to your kids. So this one is for the kids to watch and listen to about 5 disciplines that he has committed to in his life and how they have benefited him and how he is encouraging kids. And these include everything from, I don't want to spoil it, but the most important discipline in his life, which is reading the Bible and praying every day. But he also touches on some things related to nutrition, exercise. I don't want to spoil it. There's 5 of them. And I think he does a great job. And I think your kids are going to love it and be inspired, whether they are competitive athletes or not. These are just daily disciplines that we all could use and will make your kids' lives better. So I hope you love that. There's also a printable he created to go with it. So that's a really fun addition to the character training course. And just a reminder, though the doors only open for a week 3 times a year, once you're in the character training course, you have lifetime access. And so that means if you're already in there, you'll have access to all the new things I add, including this new video from Luke. And also you can go at your own pace. So once you purchase it, you don't have to start it right away. You're not on anyone's schedule. The whole course is put together in bite-sized pieces, and you can go through it and just pick and choose what is most relevant to you at the time and come back for more later. Now, there will be a link to the course over in show notes. You can go over, see everything that's in it, ask me any questions. And show notes today can be found at monicaswanson.com/Luke-discipline. Okay. So lots of good stuff in this conversation. I hope you are encouraged. I'll have a few final words to say at the end, but without further ado, here's Luke and I talking about a life of discipline. I hope you and your kids are encouraged. Well, aloha, everyone, and welcome back to the show, Luke.
Thank you.
So fun to do this with you.
Glad to be here.
And today we get to talk about a topic that is not everyone's favorite, but a good one and an important one for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about?
Talking about discipline.
Discipline.
Not necessarily like that, but like
that was probably really
discipline.
loud. Like self-discipline as a character quality, which often begins with the more external discipline maybe in childhood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the goal we were just chatting about of discipline or disciplining our children, offering that extrinsic discipline, is that one day this would become intrinsic, that kids would internalize this whole concept of discipline and that they would want to be self-disciplined people.
Which is exactly what all of your kids are. Just kidding.
I mean, I think the adults in the family are showing some good signs of being disciplined, right?
We're trying our best.
No, and Levi actually is very disciplined in the areas that he cares about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, 100%. Levi
Yes.
is a very disciplined person.
Yes. So with that, I thought it would be fun to share a little conversation here, just maybe about our family, things that we have done as you were growing up, what you think has helped shape you as a professional surfer, college student, involved in ministry. You have to be pretty disciplined in your life right now. And so I want to just share with people some of the things you think have shaped you the most before anyone says, well, this is a personality thing. Some people are just more naturally disciplined. I'd say you're a pretty chill guy.
Oh, yeah. I definitely am. I'm definitely prone to some laziness here and there.
Right. And I don't think laziness, but you're not like a rigid person.
Whatever the opposite of discipline is. No, but it's true. Like, it's 100% like based off of, I'm sure there's a lot of nurture versus nature in it. And some people are naturally more task oriented, goal driven. They have a regimen every day. And then other people are more, chilling. Yeah. Probably I'd err on more on the chilling side, but that doesn't mean that it's something that's only important for some people. Discipline is equally as important for everyone. I would say that in anything in life, even if you are desiring to have a chill life, you need discipline to get there.
Yes.
Discipline it's the fuel for everything.
I love that. No, that's really good. So, yeah, and I'm thinking of all of you kids, and anyone listening that has more than one child knows that everyone has unique personalities. And I'd say your oldest brother is probably naturally very disciplined. Like he's just happiest with a more structured life.
Yes, totally.
And then we move on down the line, and each of you are very different in that way. But discipline is super important. And I love that the Bible has a lot to say about discipline. There's some good verses that we will talk about today. Do you want to just start with a couple of those?
Yeah, well, we have a whole list of them. Right here, I wrote down Proverbs 10:17. Whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, but whoever ignores correction leads others astray. Talk about why it's so important to have your firstborn child be disciplined, because they're really showing the way
That's
for
true.
everyone else to life. Yeah.
That's a good point. I like how you saw that in that verse. And so, yeah, even if your firstborn is more naturally chill, we as parents can help them develop discipline as they grow up. I love Hebrews 12. It says, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So again, this might mean some training for us as parents to our kids, like training them in, proper behavior and character and chores and all those things, but also you can train yourself in discipline and enjoy the fruit of righteousness in that, right?
Yeah. And it's a balance too. It's like everything. It's like such a balance to be disciplined towards your goals, whatever your goals are, whether it's school or sports or family or like whatever the thing is that you're most focused on or the things are. You can discipline yourself to the point of like never feeling like you're disciplined enough. Like there's definitely like a certain point of like, okay, I'm a little bit, this thing is controlling my life more than other things, and it shouldn't be controlling my life. And then there's a level of like, you don't recognize enough discipline in your life and you feel unstructured and, confused and a little bit disoriented. And so I think a lot of it's finding balance, but probably in this day and age, I'd say that we probably need a lot more discipline than a lot of other times in history, because we're just so easily complacent and like lazy.
Right. And we live in a time where, yes, there's so much more opportunity to, you're not forced necessarily every day to be as disciplined.
Which is why it's important to have good reasoning behind your discipline, which is like, I would say first and foremost, biblical discipline, whatever it is in the Bible that we're supposed to be disciplined about, that would be the most important disciplines. And then you can just go, okay, the reasoning behind that is because it's in the Bible. But then there's also lots of other things, like we were talking about making your bed earlier, and just simple little things in life that like they might seem like nothing and not like primary importance in life, but once you start doing them, you're like, whoa, that does make a big difference.
Yes, I love that. Okay, well, let's just talk a little bit. We've got many more verses to share, unless you had any pressing right now.
No, it's okay.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about just how we've done things in our home, because like you, I don't think Dad and I don't feel like we're super rigid people. Like, we're a pretty relaxed crew. It takes effort for us to be disciplined. I think Dad's super smart and like he can get by doing a lot of really good work, but I don't think he's by nature like super structured and,
I think in general, we haven't made discipline because it's really easy to feel like being disciplined and being happy are like unrelated. Like the more disciplined you are, the less happy you are, I think just in our family in general, we've made it a standard that the more disciplined you are, the more satisfied you are.
Right.
And I think that's totally fine to create that as a standard. And so I think that we probably don't feel like we're very disciplined, but I'd say
we might be more than we realize.
We might be more than we realize, just because even the things we don't feel like, oh, it's such a tough discipline, we just do it because it feels good and right.
Yes. And I couldn't find who was originally responsible for the quote, but there is a quote, Jocko Willink, I think, says it, but discipline equals freedom. And I've experienced that so much in my own life where, it takes discipline to get to the other side where you do experience that freedom. But let's go ahead and just talk about some of the things you remember as a kid. What are some of the memories you have growing up where discipline started to become something you are aware of?
Well, school is a big one, I think, for sure. I mean, just because we were all homeschooled, and so how much school we did and how well we did it and how much effort we put into it was pretty tightly regulated and enforced by you primarily, and then also Dad. And so like, I think at a young age, well, it's part of it, and we were talking about this beforehand, but part of it is that when you're little, you don't really understand why you're doing things, and it takes time to understand. And even if you're explaining it, it might still not make sense. Even if you're saying, this is the reason why we want you to keep doing school when you don't feel like it, and this is why we want you to clean your room even when you don't feel like it. Though even the answers might not make sense because we're just little children. We just want to do what sounds best to us.
Right.
But I think that there's breakthroughs as you grow up, starting when you're little all the way till, I'm sure I still have many more of them to go through, where you're like, wait, that's why I do this, and realizing the importance of things. Sometimes you don't need to know the importance to create the discipline, but I think creating that discipline when you're little, or when we're little, you creating it for us is really important so that we don't create a normal practice out of being lazy or undisciplined.
Do you remember what we would tell you? I mean, all I can think of is going back to the most basic verse, which is honor your mother and your father. Like sometimes it's just like, this is how our family runs. This is what you need to do. Maybe we tried to explain why we want you to make your bed every day, but it didn't make sense.
Well, I mean, just pretty simply, one of the biggest ones for me when it comes to discipline growing up that I remember clearly not understanding, now I understand, is just related to surfing. Because when I was little, my whole life has been like one of the biggest things in it is my surfing career. And that started when I was 5 years old, before I can even remember. And so there was so many times where I didn't want to surf. Dad would say, and you would back Dad up if I was arguing with him. You'd say, well, you got to stay disciplined because that's how you're going to see success come about. If you just surf when you want to, or you just practice when you want to, you're not going to go as far with it as you want to. And there were so many times that it didn't make sense.
Sure.
And you guys would say, just trust us now, you're going to thank us later, that sort of thing.
And let me jump in there to just clarify for those who haven't necessarily heard all of our conversations, because Luke has been on a number of times, and I'll be sure to link in show notes to other interviews where he's talked a lot about his surfing career. But that was because you had by then made it your goal to be a professional surfer. We haven't had that same standard for all of our kids, but that came through conversations of like, okay, if this is your goal, then you're going to have to trust us. We're going to tell you when you need to get out there and when you don't.
Yeah. And that's probably the biggest part of it, is it comes down to trust. Like, it really does come down to like, I trust that you, like, I can clearly remember one time coming home, and I was probably like upset and crying and in tears and whatever. I was really little because Dad was saying, you got to go surf. And I was like, I don't want to. He said, well, do you want to be a pro? Or, kind of giving me that ultimatum sort of thing that you got to do sometimes. And you said something along the lines of, if you're going to promise us that this is what you want, you're going to have to obey us when you don't feel like it. And that's just going to have to be it. There has to be no question about it. You just do it when we say it. And I think there was probably to some extent a level of like, I knew that you guys didn't really know that much about surfing, but your best interest was in me.
You had
my best interest in mind.
Yes.
And so you wanted me to become a better surfer. And so I just trusted that. And I just was like, okay, well, this is my best option moving forward, is just to listen to them. And obviously there's probably a certain level of that I could have been better at, but looking back from where I am now, I can definitely say like, wow, that was so important. And now it's important because I've learned that lesson. I don't have to learn it now. I can really just keep my head down and stay disciplined with surfing when I don't feel like it.
Right.
That's such a huge one though. I mean,
and again, I'm probably being like worried here that people are judging, but I will say, even in those moments, that was very relative. We probably were asking you to go out for an hour. It's not I mean, I just want to anyone to think
extrapolate that and think a lot of
yes, you still played with friends. We still had a very normal life, but we might have said, hey, you got to get out there for an hour. It's just what we do to, help you achieve your goals.
Looking back now, I can say 100% you guys are like kings at moderation. You guys did an amazing job with that.
Thank you.
For sure. I can confidently say it now. Back then, it might not have felt like that to my
in the
8-year-old
moment.
self. I might have felt like my parents are literally like
so
military sergeants and they just want me to experience pain. But that really was not.
Right. Because then you came home and had fun and did all the things
a lot of
kids
the time,
do.
I would immediately see the benefits because I'd go out and have a good session when I didn't want to be out there. And to this day, you even just told me the other day when I was kind of down in the dumps about paddling out for a surf, you said something like, you always feel like this right before your big breakthrough. Then sure enough, I had my breakthrough. That's just been a common thread is like, when you do it, when you don't want to do it, you're going to be rewarded for it.
Man.
Either sooner or later, it's going to happen. So that is a discipline, just that trust in the process. And surfing's probably been the biggest one for me in that way. But
yeah, I mean, okay, moms, you can relate to this. Just yesterday, I felt that way about cleaning my bedroom. My bedroom was all messy and cluttered. And I was like, I just want to put it off another day. But I knew that if I disciplined myself to just do the work, and I felt so much better with a clean floor and decluttered. And
that's why a proper understanding of discipline is so important because even in my own life, I struggle so much with the idea that discipline really is just this stumbling block that's just so hard, but you got to do it. You got to be a part. It's got to be a part of your life. Because in reality, it's actually so important and beneficial.
Freeing.
It reminds me of, who was it? Well, I guess Dad was talking about it recently. Someone else probably said it first, but like the original 10 Commandments in the Bible. It's like so many people look at that and go, Christianity, especially like in the Old Testament days, that was just a bunch of rules and regulations. But really, the saying is the law was there to provide and protect.
Yeah.
And when you think about it in that way, and you really do understand that, it's kind of mind blowing because really, when you live your life according to God's word and according to his law, you experience more freedom than beforehand by a lot. And you feel like every aspect of your life feels better. And in the same way, in a more broader sense, discipline or whatever you want to call that, it allows so much more freedom and it allows you to feel so much better about yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. There's so many benefits to a disciplined lifestyle. And I think one of those is that you do begin to have more just confidence in who you are because you are aware that you are managing your life well. It's this beautiful pattern. And sometimes it's hard to get to the other side. And so maybe before we move on, besides surfing, chores, how about that? When you were growing up, we went through some hard seasons where I was struggling to figure out a chore system. I kept throwing them out and then we would all be all over the place. And then I finally came up with a chore system that really worked for us. But at some point, you became really good at just doing the work without complaining. We're still working on that a little bit with your younger brother. But what do you think helped with that kind of thing for those listening who might have young kids who they're just trying to get them to do their chores every day?
Honestly, we could probably do an entire podcast about chores because it's such a huge part of our lives, especially being homeschooled. So many people my age don't even know what chores are. It seems like even as an adult, they're like, they just didn't grow up doing them or whatever it was very minimal. It was like, just clean your own room. Don't worry about it. Like the mom takes care of the house or the dad, takes care of the yard or whatever it is. But we grew up with such a focus on chores that I think that there's a lot of different elements to it. But probably a big one was for me connecting the dots between you and dad being more appreciative of it when we did do it, instead of it being like, this is just a rule that we want you to follow. It was more like, wait, you guys actually really like it when we do this. And so in that way, going back to the honoring your father and mother, like probably that is where I've made a big connection, is like, okay, it's not just for me, it's for them. They're going to be happier about this when I'm able to, with my extra time, do the dishes or clean up that mess that I made, or, whatever,
kitchen
put my
outside
surfboards
with
away
dad.
or whatever it is. Yeah. Just be helpful. And then I've just also noticed how much in general people appreciate it. Because if I'm not at home, other places, I've made that connection. When you do extra work and you do things that you weren't necessarily asked to do, people really appreciate it. It puts everyone in a good mood. And then also just like finding value in doing work. I think that, I don't even know if I've read the book, but you're reading the book with Levi about doing hard things. Is that what it's called? Or what is it called? Or created for work.
We did read that when you were young. You just don't probably remember.
Exactly.
Such
Finding
a
a purpose in just doing what you don't want to do is really important. And then just trying to make it fun, like whatever you're doing, using your brain, being creative, using your imagination, not just being negative and bitter, doing it with a cheerful heart.
And doing everything as unto the Lord.
What is the verse?
That one? Which one?
Not verse, phrase, not verse.
Do it all the way, right away with a happy heart.
Yeah, I never understood that when I was little, but it makes so much sense that the last part, the happy heart, is like, if you do it all the way and right away, but not with a happy heart, you're never going to want to do it. But if you learn how to be happy doing it, then you're able to do it without a limit. You can do it as much as you want and all that. So that's really, really important, is learning that happiness part of it, which I don't really know. I think
when that clicked.
I don't really know when that clicks or clicked for me, but at some point, it doesn't always click. I still don't do things all the time happily, for sure. But yeah.
Yeah. Hey friends, well, I hear a lot from homeschool families and those who are thinking about becoming homeschoolers who have curriculum on their mind, especially topics like math and science, where parents feel such a responsibility to make sure their kids get what they need if they want to go to college one day. And yet they also want to find something their kids will enjoy. Well, let me introduce you to our good friend, Dr. Shorman, who has math and science courses at the diveintomath.com website. My boys all have taken Dive for their math and science, and my now college graduate sons feel that Dr. Shorman prepared them very well for their degrees in engineering and data analytics. A couple things you want to know about Dive. Well, Dr. Shorman uses John Saxon's proven teaching methods, and he incorporates 21st century topics like computer math, technology applications, and current real-world word problems. Dr. Shorman does such a great job of offering a biblical and historical foundation, and he teaches the why of learning math, which makes a huge difference to our kids. Dr. Shorman offers Algebra 1 and 2, which teaches every concept on the PSAT, SAT, and ACT with over 200 practice questions. If you want to keep the door open for your kids to potentially go to college one day, I highly recommend checking out diveintomath.com for your math and science curriculum needs. Hey parents, so Easter is almost here. Can you believe it? Well, if you're looking for a meaningful way to deepen your kids' relationship with God while making their Easter baskets extra special this year, I have good news for you. Christian Parenting is offering an Easter bundle you and your kids will love. You'll love it because all of Christian Parenting's trusted resources are biblically sound. They'll love it because these products are fun, colorful, special, and made with your kids in mind. They will grow their faith and feel loved, encouraged, seen, and known. This Easter bundle includes God's Holy Spirit in Me, which is an interactive 20-day devotional for kids aged 6 to 12 to explore what it means to have God's Spirit working in their lives. Also, Scripture Affirmation Cards, which are 25 cards packed with truths from God's Word to remind your kids of their identity in Christ and give them confidence every day. And finally, noteworthy prayers, customizable cards with prayers, scripture, and space for you to write a personal note of encouragement to your child. These fun and faith-filled resources are now bundled for just $35. That's 20% off their full price. So don't wait. Order your bundle now and make this Easter truly unforgettable for your family. Visit cpgive.org, that's the letters CP as in Christian Parenting, give.org to get your bundle today. Again, that's cpgive.org. And I do think that there's conversations, again, for those listening with younger kids, sometimes you feel like a broken record, but just know that that's normal, that you don't expect to teach your kids something once and they're going to get it. You're going to need to teach them over and over and repeat yourself. And I have people reach out to me that are like, oh, they're just not getting it. And I'm like, then keep going. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with your child. It means you are a parent and they are a child and this is your job. So we talked about things like, realize that anything you do around here, you're doing as if unto the Lord. And so what would that look like? And like you said, knowing that you're blessing others and then experiencing that when you go stay with other families and they send me pictures of you in their sink doing dishes and you know that blesses them and that makes you more likely to be invited back, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then you realize also, like, probably the competitive part of me realizes that, like, when you're willing to do stuff that other people aren't willing to do, it also sets you apart.
There we go.
And so you can kind of, and I don't want to mean that in like a, like,
you're like doing it out of pride.
Yeah. No. But at the same time,
it's,
my goodness, everything if I've learned anything about like sports and success in general, it's like when you're willing to do something when other people aren't, you're always going to be rewarded. Not just the percentage you do more than everyone, but like 10 times more. If you just do 5% more or 10% more,
yes,
you're going to be rewarded for it in a big way. And so, like, yeah, that's
I love that.
Realizing that's
super
really
good.
important, I think, too.
Okay, that's awesome.
Or like all those times that you would ask me, or like you wouldn't ask me to do something, but I'd have something in mind that I want to do, like hang out with friends or go surfing or something, and then I'd do it, and then you would be like, I mean, I'd be ready for you to not do it, but you'd be like, wow, you really were thinking about this. You know what? You should take the afternoon off or whatever it is. You know, it's like you can work towards your reward knowing that when you do something hard, you're going to be rewarded for it.
It's so true. Smart kid. And the sooner your kids start to connect those dots, you're like, hey, we as parents are just waiting to bless you.
Exactly.
And that's what I tell Levi. Like, I want to like, I've got that stash of your favorite candy somewhere. And I can't wait till I get the chance to say, you know what? I'm just so pleased with your heart right now. And I love that in parenting, there's so many analogies to our relationship with God. And I just think about that. And I'm like, how many areas of life is he just also watching going, when are you going to get this? Because I want to bless you.
Yeah. When are you going to just do what's best for you?
Right. But I think I want to circle back briefly to that extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, because I do think that it's important that when kids are young, we do need to give them those sometimes extrinsic, motivations, whether that's rewards or consequences if they don't do things, but with the hope of it becoming an intrinsic motivation. And again, conversations can help that. We can pray for our kids. And I guess that we can't change their heart, only God can. But I do believe that sometimes when we do our part as parents to discipline them from the outside, typically, if things are going well and they are surrounded by good influences and you're, in the word with them and praying for them, then there's going to be a day where it does start to click and they start to internalize it.
Yeah, I haven't been in that position, but I can imagine there's a certain level, again, of trust where you have to believe that when you discipline your kids, even though it's hard, because the Bible says to, that it's going to reward both you and them, because they're going to be walking in truth and righteousness, and they're going to be following God by following their parents. And that even though that's a hard situation to be in, you can trust that it will work out. Yep. I'm sure that's a tough one. I can't necessarily imagine it in my life, but yeah.
And Dad and I have talked about discipline. I will remember to link to that as well. But one of the verses we talk about is Ephesians 6:4 that says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." And so it should be completely, not anger. It should be in a completely different space than anger, because you are disciplining them positively and training them with God's word. Well, with that, let's move a little bit more now towards your life as a newly 21-year-old. And we've talked a bit about mindset and your surfing career here on the podcast, but maybe we can talk about, you were sharing with me from a book you've been reading and kind of some of the little brain science and how that applies to this topic of discipline.
Yeah. Well, this book I'm reading, I might have even mentioned it before on the podcast, but it's one of my big tools in my toolbox that I like to use for surfing and competitions and thinking through just hard times. I really like to not just become apathetic and space out when things get hard, because I think it's really easy to, when you get into a slump with surfing or school or whatever, just to kind of do the mundane without really thinking it through. But I guess I'm more of a thinker, because I want to understand, why is it mundane? Why is it boring? And how do I make it not that way? And this book offered some really good advice on that. The book is called The Confident Mind by Dr. Nate Zinsser. It talks about the plateaus. And so whatever it is, which I think discipline is the key to working through plateaus, whether it's in work or school or you're at your sport, it's really easy to have a sense of you're coming up and then you're flattening out with your progression or your performance or your revenue or whatever it is. It's really easy to feel like, wow, everything's flattened out. Every day feels the same. I'm not experiencing any breakthroughs that like flow state. Don't feel like everything's just going my direction. He talks about, at least in athletic performance, the connection between neurons in your brain, and how when you repeat an activity or you give a certain stimulus to one neuron and it attaches to another, like, for surfing, maybe it's like going for an air, doing a turn, or popping up, or just like the simplest thing, you're creating a connection between neurons because you have an input and then an output. And the more you do that thing, even though it might not feel like anything special, you're creating a stronger connection between those two things. And kind of like insulation on like an electrical wire, how it creates a faster connection the more insulated it is. You're creating a better connection and a faster connection between those impulses every single time you do that thing, every repetition of it. And so I was just thinking, when it comes to discipline, you need to understand that even on the days where it doesn't feel like it's really doing anything for you, you're creating a stronger connection and also a more natural and instinctive connection. So like making bed in the morning, like you might think that it doesn't feel like anything the first few weeks you're doing it. Maybe the first couple of days it feels really good to do it and you feel really motivated to do it. And then 2 weeks in, all of a sudden you're like, wait, why am I doing this? It doesn't even... But then you create a strong enough connection, and every time I wake up, before my brain's even gone on, my bed's already made. And I don't know how that happened. I just became a natural thing because that connection became really strong. Same with brushing your teeth before bed or whatever it is. And so just creating disciplines, you got to remember that there's also a scientific, reaction. And there's an actual process going on inside of your brain that's making it easier to do and more natural to do. So yeah, that's kind of like I don't know much of the science behind it, but that's what I was learning.
Hey, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that everyone listening could stop right now and think through, like, what's an area in your kids' lives that, you want to help them develop better discipline. And maybe in the simplest terms, depending on their age. Of course, when they're young, this isn't going to make sense, but help them understand that if they can trust you with this and they can practice that thing,
it's going to become easier.
Yeah. And that thing leads to bigger wins.
Yes.
So for you, making your bed is one thing, but somehow I believe that is tied to success in other areas of life.
100%. Yeah, success breeds success. So it's just going to keep on, it'll have some sort of effect somewhere down the road. And if nothing else, it feels like something you accomplished at the end of the day. Feels good.
And I think that habits are closely related to this, in that you can kind of habit stack. You make the bed and then you're like, okay, I'm attaching making my bed to grabbing my Bible and sitting down and spending time with God before I pick up my phone. So I love that. And the character training course, Luke, you have a new little contribution. Why don't you tell people what you're talking about in there? It's a message directly to the kids. So whether you have young kids or through the teenage years, Luke is sharing a little bit from his experience.
Well, yeah, in the character training course, I am attaching my own little segment talking about discipline for kids and how they can apply examples of discipline that I've used in my life to their own lives. I believe it's all applicable to everyone.
Yay.
And they can apply that to their lives and hopefully find success and hopefully take it from me that I have at least a little knowledge of what I'm saying and that I have seen its benefits in my own life and just take my word for it that it's going to make your life better.
Awesome. And you're sharing, I think, is it 5 specific areas of discipline?
Yeah. I guess general discipline, but kind of daily discipline.
Yeah, you're sharing 5 of the things that you've done as a Christian student athlete, right? So whether or not your kids are, involved in it.
The Venn diagram, they probably fall somewhere into that.
Yes, they do.
3 bubbles.
Christian student athlete. Absolutely. Yes. And you do share in such a way that you're relatable. So that's going to be really fun. And hopefully having Luke speak directly to the kids is going to be a huge encouragement. And there is a printable that will go with that in the character training course where you can print it out, give it to your kids as a little reminder with some Bible verses and Luke's own words there. So thanks for doing that. I just think that's going to add so much value to this topic because really discipline, self-discipline is a character quality and it's an important one. It's one at the probably heart of many others because it's going to be hard to do a lot of things that require character unless you are a disciplined person.
Yeah, it's the fuel for any change in life, especially in the right direction. Discipline is so important.
It is indeed.
Should we find another Bible verse?
Yeah, give us another one and then we'll wrap up.
Let's see here.
There's a lot in Proverbs.
This is actually my favorite one, I think.
Let's go.
Pretty sure it's my favorite. We've talked about it a lot. Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank. Now, of course, it's easy to...
What is that? Tell us where that's at.
That's Proverbs 22:29. Of course, that's easy to make it seem like whatever you're doing, the whole goal is to do it before people of, high status or something. But at the end of the day, if you want to be acknowledged and rewarded and successful, and even within our own spiritual lives, be rewarded by God, we got to be disciplined. We got to work hard at what we do, and we will be rewarded.
Absolutely, yes. And maybe just related to sports, I couldn't help but pull up this one, 1 Corinthians 9:27. I feel like that's a good one for you to read.
But I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. Yeah, so it's important.
I think what I've read there is, Paul was just talking about the importance of disciplining himself. As a servant of God, you think about our witness before a watching world and what people see in us. And we want to be great ambassadors of the Lord, where we are living genuine ambassadors, where we're living lives of discipline, where we're not lazy or wasting time or...
And it's easier to trust someone when you can look at their own lives and see that they're applying what they're saying.
Absolutely.
100%.
Well, Luke, thank you so much. And I really hope that everyone can get into the character training course. For those of you who are already in it, anytime I add something new, it is there for you. So you can revisit, get back in there and look for this new edition, which is a video of Luke talking to the kids and a download that goes with that. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. Aloha. All right, friends, I hope you and your kids were encouraged by that conversation. And be sure to go over to show notes for links to anything we talked about. And show notes today can be found at monicaswanson.com/Luke-discipline. And over in show notes, I will have a link to the character training course page so you can check out everything that's in there. If you're not in it yet, I think you're going to love it. And the doors will open on March 24th for 1 week only. Remember, if you are in the course already, you get access to anything I add over time, including this new video from Luke and the printable download that goes with it. So hooray for all of that. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at aloha@monicaswanson.com. My assistant or I will do our best to get back to you. But if you do have a question that's more like a parenting question or a question about life in Hawaii or raising a surfer or anything else, please go over to Instagram stories on the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of the month where I do Q&As. I love to answer your questions over there. And there's a good chance that if you have a question, somebody else is wondering the same thing. So that is a great place to ask your questions. And I try to answer as many as I can on the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of the month. If you're not following me on Instagram, look for me at @MonicaSwanson_. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast community. God bless you. We have another amazing interview coming up next week. So don't be a stranger. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. And you can also watch these interviews on the Christian Parenting YouTube channel, which I'll have a link to in show notes as well. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, aloha.